hope I learned something. I hope I learned something. I hope I learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. Hope we learned something. Hope we learned something. I hope we learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days.
And hello, welcome to AHNC All Hat No Cattle. I am Hat, and today we will be going over the John Solomon article that appeared in Thursday's version of The Hill, entitled Solomon, These Once Secret Memos Cast Doubt on Joe Biden's Ukraine Story. Now this is the lead-in to the tranche of documents that Solomon released also on Thursday. I have them pulled up here on Scribe. The thing is, these documents, they are not in order as far as all having to deal with Ukraine, and then the next one is having to deal with something else. I've been sorting through them a little bit today. I'm going to have to do a lot more work to get through them to make sure that I only pull up the relevant articles, so I'm not wasting your time on Monday. Now about Monday, real quickly. I had to make a doctor's appointment. Nothing spectacular, just more routine than anything else, but I had to make it, and I had to make it on Monday. And it's at 1 Central, 2 Eastern. So what I'm going to do is I have two choices. I can either start at 11 and then read for an hour and a half then leave for my appointment and come back and then be on about 2 hours later. 3 hours later. Or I could not start until 1 p.m., 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and then read until, say, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. That way we'd still get a lot of data in, but there wouldn't be the interruption. So what I would like y'all to do, those of you here now and those of you who are listening after this post, please, I beg of you, put into the comments of this video which of those two options you prefer. That way I'll have a good count and I'll be able to determine what works best for everybody. It's not my personal convenience that matters to me. I want it to work best for y'all. So please, again, put in the comment section on this video after it posts which of those two options you prefer. Either starting at 11 a.m. Central, 12 noon Eastern, reading for an hour and a half, breaking, and then coming back at 2 Central, 3 Eastern, and reading for the rest of the evening, or just starting at 2 Central, sorry, I keep doing that, starting at 2 Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, and then reading till probably about 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. So please, vote on that. Let me know what you think. It's very important that you do that. We've got a pretty full chat on a Saturday. This ought to be good. I really appreciate y'all being here. And we have a good 5 people set up. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm sure we'll get a few more views. Whatever works for me, says SRS 4859. I really want you guys to decide. I really want to hear from you. If I'll go by majority vote, but it means a lot to me if you could pick. Justifiable Freedom, hello, welcome to the chat. Very nice to have you back. Wonderful to have you back, actually. Okay, let's get into the story. I don't expect to do a lot of commentary, but you know me, sometimes I just get off on a tangent here and there. So let's see what happens. Okay, now. As of my pulling up of this story, which again was posted on the 26th of September, this has almost just over 62,500 shares. Pretty popular article. Now, one thing I do want to mention, John Solomon usually writes in the opinion section of The Hill. And now he is, I believe, vice president of The Hill, so perhaps this is an arrangement where he does not put himself down as a reporter since he has a bias. I don't know. But he is often listed as an opinion contributor. And so this technically is an opinion piece. To continue, here we go. Former Vice President Joe Biden, now a 2020 Democratic presidential contender, has locked into a specific story about the controversy in Ukraine. He insists that, in spring 2016, he strong-armed Ukraine to fire its chief prosecutor solely because Biden believed that official was corrupt and inept, not because the Ukrainian was investigating a natural gas company, Burisma Holdings, that hired Biden's son Hunter into a lucrative job. There's just one problem. Hundreds of pages of never-released memos and documents, many from inside the American team helping Burisma to stave off its legal troubles, conflict with Biden's narrative. And they raise the troubling prospect that U.S. officials may have painted a false picture in Ukraine that helped ease Burisma's legal troubles and stop prosecutors' plans to interview Hunter Biden during the 2016 U.S. presidential election. For instance, Burisma's American legal representatives met with Ukrainian officials just days after Biden forced the firing of the country's chief prosecutor and offered, quote, an apology for dissemination of false information by U.S. representatives and public figures, unquote, about the Ukrainian prosecutors, according to the Ukrainian government's official memo of the meeting. The effort to secure that meeting began the same day the prosecutor's firing was announced. So no coordination there whatsoever. In addition, it's almost as if the lawyers knew that Biden was going to get that prosecutor fired that very day. It almost, maybe, Perhaps. To continue. In addition, Burisma's American team offered to introduce Ukrainian prosecutors to Obama administration officials to make amends, according to that memo and the American legal team's internal emails. The memos raised troubling questions. 1. If the Ukraine prosecutor's firing involved only his alleged corruption and ineptitude, why did Burisma's American legal team refer to those allegations as, quote, false information? 2. If the firing had nothing to do with the Burisma case, as Biden has adamantly claimed, why would Burisma's American lawyers contact the replacement prosecutor within hours of the termination and urgently seek a meeting in Ukraine to discuss the case? Stay out of the closet, kitty cat. Stay out of the closet. Continuing. That's Piper, by the way. Ukrainian prosecutors say they have tried to get this information to the U.S. Department of Justice since the summer of 2018, fearing it might be evidence of possible violations of U.S. ethics laws. First, they hired a former federal prosecutor to bring the information to the U.S. Attorney in New York, who they say showed no interest. Deep state. Can you say deep state? Because I can. Continuing. Then the Ukrainians reached out to President Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, thereby breaking in half the crybaby's complaint, stating that Rudy was sent personally by Trump to interfere with the Ukrainian process. Black and white. Ukrainians reached out to Rudy because the U.S. Attorney in New York refused to listen to them. Continuing. Ukraine's new president, Volodymyr Zelensky, told Trump in July that he plans to launch his own wide-ranging investigation into what happened with the Bidens and Burisma. Quote, I'm knowledgeable about the situation, Zelensky told Trump, asking the American president to forward any evidence he might know about. To continue. The issue of the investigation of the case is actually the issue of making sure to restore the honesty, so we will take care of that, that's Zelensky saying that, and will work on the investigation of the case. Biden has faced scrutiny since December 2015, when the New York Times published a story noting that Burisma hired Hunter Biden just weeks after the vice president was asked by President Obama to oversee U.S.-Ukraine relations. That story also alerted Biden's office that Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin had an active investigation of Burisma and its founder. Documents I obtained, and speaking for John Solomon, documents I obtained this year detail an effort to change the narrative after the Times story about Hunter Biden with the help of the Obama State Department. Hunter Biden's American business partner in Burisma, Devin Archer, texted a colleague 2 days after the Times story about a strategy to counter the, quote, new wave of scrutiny, and stated that he and Hunter Biden had just met at the State Department. The text suggested there was about to be a new, quote, U.S. aid project the embassy is announcing with us, close quote, and that it was, quote, perfect for us to move forward now with momentum. I have sued the State Department for any records related to that meeting. The reason is simple. There is both a public interest and an ethics question to knowing if Hunter Biden and his team sought state's assistance while his father was vice president. No, I can't imagine that would have happened at all. The Obama administration was very tightly run. No cross-channeling or, helping out people who weren't part of the government illegally. I mean, it was, remember, no scandals in the Obama administration, folks. No scandals. Of course, the thing is, every month that goes by, we turn up another one. Go figure. As Andrew Klavan likes to say on his Daily Wire podcast, Obama was a Chicago Pole, short for politician, who ran the federal government like a Chicago Democratic machine. And if you look at the history of Chicago politics, and then you look at the history of the Obama administration, you will see that that is exactly the case. Continuing. The controversy ignited anew earlier this year when I disclosed that Joe Biden admitted during a 2018 videotaped speech that, as vice president in March 2016, he threatened to cancel $1 billion, that's a billion with a B, folks, in U.S. loan guarantees to pressure Ukraine's then-president Petro Poroshenko to fire Shokin. At the time, Shokin's office was investigating Burisma. Shokin told me he was making plans to question Hunter Biden about $3 million, million with an M, in fees that Biden and his partner Archer collected from Burisma through their American firm. Documents seized by the FBI in an unrelated case confirm the payments, which in many months totaled more than $166,000. We keep hearing that $50,000 a month fee for Hunter Biden paid by Burisma over and over again, or up to $50,000. I was perusing through the financial statements for the holding company, Seneca Holding, that Hunter and Archer had created, and there were some incredibly massive payments coming into them from Burisma and other entities that were not specifically labeled Burisma, but looked like laundered money coming from outside sources. We'll look at several of those pieces. There are hundreds of those documents going from 2014 to 2016, monthly statements. And I shouldn't say hundreds, but dozens. And we'll look at some of those and get an idea of how much money was coming in, and then how much money wasn't coming in after they left Burisma. It's quite eye-opening. We'll get into that. I don't know if we'll get to it Monday, but we will get into it next week. To continue, some media outlets have reported that, at the time Joe Biden forced the firing in March 2016, there were no open investigations. Those reports are wrong. A British-based investigation of Burisma's owner was closed down in early 2015 on a technicality when a deadline for documents was not met. But the Ukraine Prosecutor General's office still had 2 open inquiries in March 2016, according to the official case file provided to me. One of those cases involved taxes, the other, allegations of corruption. Burisma announced the cases against it were not closed and settled until January 2017. Emphasis mine. After I first reported it in a column, the New York Times and ABC News published similar stories confirming my reporting. Joe Biden has since responded that he forced Shokin's firing over concerns about corruption and ineptitude, which he claims were widely shared by Western allies, and that it had nothing to do with the Burisma investigation. Some of the new documents I obtained call that claim into question. In a newly sworn affidavit prepared for a European court, Shokin testified that when he was fired in March 2016, he was told the reason was that Biden was unhappy about the Burisma investigation. Quote, "The truth is that I was forced out because I was leading a wide-ranging corruption probe into Burisma Holdings, a natural gas firm active in Ukraine, and Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was a member of the board of directors," Shokin testified. So under oath, he testified. Quote, "On several occasions, President Poroshenko asked me to have a look at the case against Burisma and consider the possibility of winding down the investigative actions in respect of this company, but I refused to close this investigation," Shokin added. Shokin certainly would have had reason to hold a grudge over his firing, but his account is supported by documents from Burisma's legal team in America, which appeared to be moving into Ukraine with intensity as Biden's effort to fire Shokin picked up steam. Because remember, Biden had started the pressure on Ukraine to fire Shokin before the infamous March 2016 strong arm of the Ukrainian president. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment idea. Continuing. Burisma's own accounting records show that it paid tens of thousands of dollars while Hunter Biden served on the board of an American lobbying and public relations firm, Blue Star Strategies, run by Sally Painter and Karen Tramontano, who both served in President Bill Clinton's administration. Can you imagine it? Can you just imagine that the Clintons had their hands in this thing too? Isn't it impossible to believe? Continuing. Just days before Biden forced Shokin's firing, Painter met with the number 2 official at the Ukrainian embassy in Washington and asked to meet officials in Kiev. I've heard people say Kyiv, but screw it, I'm saying Kiev. Around the same time that Joe Biden visited there. Ukrainian embassy employee Oksana Shulayar emailed Painter afterwards. With regards to the meetings in Kiev, I suggest that you wait until the next week when there is an expected vote of the government's reshuffle. Ukraine's Washington embassy confirmed the conversation between Shulayar and Painter, but said the reference was a shakeup in Ukrainian government. The reference to a shakeup in Ukrainian government was not specifically referring to Shokin's firing or anything to do with Burisma. Painter then asked one of the Ukrainian embassy's workers to open the door for meetings with Ukraine's prosecutors about the Burisma investigation the memos show. Eventually, Blue Star would pay that Ukrainian official money for his help with the prosecutor's office. Pay to play. That doesn't sound like something an American would do. Continuing. At the time, Blue Star worked in concert with an American criminal defense lawyer, John Beretta, who was hired by Burisma to help address the case in Ukraine. The case was settled in January 2017 for a few $1 million in fines for alleged tax issues. Beretta, Painter, Tramontano, Hunter Biden, and Joe Biden's campaign have not responded to numerous calls and emails seeking comment. Transparency, folks. There's that transparency the Democrats are constantly screaming about. Continuing. On March 29, 2016, the day Shokin's firing was announced, Beretta asked to speak with Yuri Sevruk, the prosecutor named to temporarily replace Shokin, but was turned down, the memos show. Blue Star, using the Ukrainian embassy worker it had hired, eventually scored a meeting with Sevruk on April 6, 2016, a week after Shokin's firing. Beretta, Tramontano, and Painter attended that meeting in Kiev, according to Blue Star's memos. I have to just say, parenthetically, I really like the way Ukrainians spell their names. They're easier to pronounce than Russian names, by far. I've come across one or two in the Solomon memos that are a bit tricky, but nothing like the ones I had to read during the Clinton closed-door testimony that we read earlier this year. None like it. Sorry for the parenthetical. I had to do that. Continuing. Sevruk memorialized the meeting in a government memo that the General Prosecutor's Office provided to me, stating that the 3 Americans offered an apology for the, quote, false narrative that had been provided by U.S. officials about Shokin being corrupt and inept. Quote, they realized that the information disseminated in the U.S. was incorrect and that they would facilitate my visit to the U.S. for the purpose of delivering the true information to the State Department management, unquote, the memo stated. The memo also quoted the Americans as saying they knew Shokin pursued an aggressive corruption investigation against Burisma's owner, only to be thwarted by British allies. Quote, though these individuals noted that they had been aware that the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine had implemented all required steps for prosecution, and that he was released by the British court due to the underperformance of the British law enforcement agencies. And again, that's that missed document deadline. How is it possible that the British, under Theresa May's government, could have let a criminal go free? I mean, it's not like they hounded and pursued and almost drove to death WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, kept him cooped up in the Ecuadorian embassy for years and years to serve a basically false warrant on him because the charges that he was not being held over for were later found by the Swedish court to be incorrect, and were overturned. So therefore, their coordination against him was basically illegal. I would like the British to do something like that. I see we're having some connection issues. I'm getting a little bit of buffering here. I hope it's not bad for you guys. Okay, due to underperformance. Okay, continuing. The memo provides a vastly different portrayal of Shokin than Biden's, and its contents are partially backed by subsequent emails from Blue Star and Beretta that confirm the offer to bring Ukrainian authorities to meet the Obama administration in Washington. For instance, Tramontano wrote the Ukrainian prosecution team on April 16, 2016, saying U.S. Justice Department officials, including top international prosecutor Bruce Schwartz, might be willing to meet. Quote, "The reforms are not known to the U.S. Justice Department, and it would be useful for the Prosecutor General to meet officials in the U.S. and share this information directly," unquote, she wrote. Beretta sent a similar email to the Ukrainians, writing that, quote, "I think you would find it productive to meet with DOJ officials in Washington," close quote, and providing contact information for Schwartz. Quote, "I would be happy to help," added Beretta, a former senior DOJ official. Burisma, Beretta, and Blue Star continued throughout 2016 to try to resolve the open issues in Ukraine, and memos recount various contacts with the State Department and the U.S. Embassy in Kiev seeking help in getting the Burisma case resolved. Just days before Trump took office, Burisma announced it had resolved all of its legal issues, and Beretta gave an interview in Ukraine about how he helped navigate the issues. Today, two questions remain. One is whether it was ethically improper or even illegal for Biden to intervene to fire the prosecutor handling Burisma's case, given his son's interests. That is one that requires more investigation and the expertise of lawyers. The second is whether Biden has given the American people an honest accounting of what had happened. The new documents I obtained raise serious doubts about his story's credibility, and that's an issue that needs to be resolved by voters. There you have it. And the tagline here, John Solomon is an award-winning investigative journalist whose work over the years has exposed U.S. and FBI intelligence failures before the September 11th attacks, federal scientists' misuse of foster children and veterans in drug experiments, and numerous cases of political corruption. He serves as an investigative columnist and executive vice president for video at The Hill. And then it gives his Twitter handle. There you go. That is the article. It's a fairly long article, quite detailed. Lots of links to documents that he has published. They're on Scribe. Or is it Scribed? Scribed. I have an account. Right now it's a free account. I may ultimately have to cough up a couple bucks for a monthly account, depending on when they decide they're going to shut off my real account. My free account. We'll see what happens. Ray, Uncle Bobbity, welcome, you guys. Sorry I missed you coming in. But there's the article. And I have a lot of love for John Solomon, and this just solidified it even more. The man is a machine when it comes to investigating corruption. He's done incredible work on Russiagate and Spygate, and this is just another example of how dogged and thorough of an investigative journalist he is. And of course, in the Rogues Gallery here, in case you didn't know, upper left here, that is John Solomon, if you haven't seen him on TV. And if you haven't been paying attention to the news as you should. And then, of course, below him is Hunter Biden, and I mean that both figuratively and literally. And then the infamous Uncle Joe, Lunch Bucket Joe, Sleepy Creepy, Slow Joe, 30330. I believe that's how Hannity says it. So yeah, that's the article, Ray. I knew it wouldn't be extra long. I mean, it's an article in a newspaper, so how long can it be? But the big stuff comes Monday. And then we'll get through it. Deborah Ellis, hello. Very nice to have you. Thank you. I hope you were able to listen to most of it. And of course, this video will be going up. I believe the font that I used is large enough for y'all to read along with me if you feel the desire to. SRS 4859 says, I really like Sarah Carter too. She has done great digging. Very smart pit bull. Absolutely. Sarah Carter and John Solomon have worked together quite extensively on Russiagate and Spygate, and they have been on point every step of the way. Unlike the fake media, which has lied continuously and sucked up to the intelligence community, feeding them lies all the time. Think of all the stories that the lamestream media got right compared to how Sarah Carter and John Solomon performed during the same time period. The difference is immense. Absolutely immense. It's as wide as the Grand Canyon and as deep. Now, I will say this. I am incredibly attracted to Sarah Carter. I think she's a babe in all ways, but she is so smart. I want to send her this email, but I never will because I never write the people that I would like to write. I want to send her an email that says, I would pay to see your brain in a bikini. That's how sexy I think she is. Sexy smart. I want to add that. Sexy smart. Because brains are sexy, folks. Brains are sexy. That's why I love Picasso knows so much. You see how often she helps me out on these live streams. How often she corrects me or helps me research things. Brains are sexy. Okay. So once again, for those of you who may not have been here at the beginning, I have two choices for streaming on Monday because I have a doctor's appointment that just popped up. I can either start at the normal time, 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern, noon real time, read for an hour and a half, take a 2-hour break, and then come back, 2.5-hour break, somewhere in there, hour and a half, come back and start reading probably at about 2 Central, 3 o'clock Eastern, and then continue on through the early evening. Or I can just wait until the appointment is over, start at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, and then go till at least 7 or 8 Eastern, 6 or 7 Central time. So please, after this video posts, vote on it in the comment section. I beg of you, please vote on it in the comment section so I'll know what you guys prefer. I will go with the majority vote, and you'll see Monday, you'll see when the pop-up comes up for when the stream is going to start. So David votes for taking the morning off. Thank you. And David, please again put that in the comment section so I can run a list because I won't remember just right now. Yeah, put that in the comment section. And then you'll either see the pop-up say the stream will start at 11 a.m. Central, noon or real time, or you'll see 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. real time. By the way the vote goes. And I'll count the voting Sunday night. I'll give you till Sunday night to vote. That way I'll have time to determine what to do Monday morning. Okay, the ayes have it. We will meet again soon. I wish you all the best rest of your weekend. Best west of your weekend. West, I guess. And I thank you very much for stopping by for a short but I think very important video. This will post pretty quickly, so you'll be able to get your votes in for Monday's start time quite quickly. So, until next time, be well. God bless. Happy trails. I'll see you soon. Again, have a great rest of the weekend. And I'll stay in the chat while we listen to Full Learning Curve.
I hope I learned something. I hope I learned something. I hope I learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny hope we learn something. Hope we learn something. I hope we learn something from the stormy sea, from the brightest day, from the darkest night, from the sunny